Hello everyone and welcome along to your Sunday night edition of the TII podcast. It's now been 48 hours since I was last on the podcast and we managed to fill a full hour of chat, and we've got another full hour of Rangers news and Rangers discussion coming up here. It seems a bit non-stop at the moment, so we'll try and cover as much as we possibly can as we build up to that first game of the Premier League season away to Hearts next Saturday. Joining me to pick through it all, I've got Ian Mitchell and Rhys Cochrane. Ian, how you doing?
Very good, mate. Yeah, as you say, there's not many teams that could get an hour-long podcast so close to itself, but that's what we do.
Absolutely. And Rhys, how you doing?
Yeah, all good. Never had all day following Rangers, so I'm sure we'll fill it with something.
Absolutely, and there's been a game since we were last on as well, so we'll talk about the manic first half that there was against Union Berlin as well away in Germany. But before we get on to that, let's have a look at the transfers. That's what everyone gets excited about, and what I think every Rangers fan is desperate to hear about, because we know we need to add to the squad quickly and with quality. So let's start with the news that we heard earlier on today. It was a bit topsy-turvy, I think it's fair to say, Ian. Joan Jordan, it was initially confirmed that by the Spanish press that he was going to be joining Rangers before Chris Jack then came out and said, actually, no, he's not. So it's an interesting one. It was one that seemed to be driven by the Spanish media, but it was confirmed today that Rangers no longer have interest in the player. I guess you can look at that one or two ways. We were talking about earlier, Ian, about do you look at it as being Rangers have another target that they've managed to get over the line, and that's the way they're going, or do you look at it in terms of, I guess, what was coming out of the Spanish media earlier in the week about Sevilla have accepted Rangers' offer, but Joan Jordan's not convinced that Rangers should be his preferred destination. What's your initial feeling about the news, and which way are you leaning on those two sides?
It's a weird one. I feel like these days you don't go for a player as extensively as we've gone for someone without having knowing it's an interest either way. Yeah. Obviously, things can change. Jordan could have got an offer from Saudi or something. It's double his wages. Things like that can come in we've got no idea about. But to me, reading between the lines, it seems like he's turned us down. Like I say, could be miles off with that, but you also heard the whispers, as you touched on last week, that he wasn't too sure about it. Maybe had another option elsewhere kind of thing. Didn't fancy Scotland, which probably can't blame the guy, having had a season or multiple seasons at one of the best leagues in the world. So I get it. And it is quite us to do the whole, we've dropped our interest kind of thing once a player's rejected us, just trying to save face a little bit. But personally, I'm quite disappointed by it. I thought he was exactly the kind of player we wanted. He could have complemented Diomande and Barron perfectly for me. And don't get me wrong, I've not seen the guy play too much, but just looking at his profile, type of player he was, the experience, the winning medals he's got kind of thing, ticked a lot of boxes. But if he's not too sure about it, if he was coming in a big wage, which we know he was going to, it might be a bit of a blessing in disguise. I put a tweet out earlier that was basically saying, hopefully it is us turning him down, or not turning him down, but backing off a little bit, maybe with someone else in mind, someone that's younger, maybe got that sell-on value kind of thing. So same idea as the Chery signing. We might have something else up our sleeves that's just nobody knows about just now. But yeah, a little bit disappointed overall. I thought it'd be a good signing, and as of this afternoon, I was reading reports that it was done. So a little bit of a backward step, given how close this Hearts game is. So hopefully someone else will end up.
Absolutely. A few comments coming in. Our very own Ros Chery saying he's definitely turned us down, hasn't he? Luke Gibson 97 says you want players that want to be here. Hugo Bear coming in and say we don't know what happened. Ari Jordan, all speculation. Rhys, is it the defensive midfield position? I think obviously with John Lundstrom's departure at the end of last season, we've known it's a position that we need to fill and that is really important to how Philippe Clement wants to play. We've not managed to fill it as yet, and as such, I think we'll come on to the positives and negatives of pre-season later on in the podcast, but it's meant that we've been really susceptible to counter-attacks, actually to any attack in pre-season, I think it's fair to say. But is this one that you're sad not to see happen?
I wouldn't go as far as sad, probably. I think he would have been a good player to get in, but now that we've not got him in, it's one of the ones you just hope that we've got a list of targets there that you can just move down to the next one. Whether that be Hannibal Mejbri that's been linked to someone else, I'd probably prefer it to be someone else, not to show all my cards to this early in the podcast. But I think Jordan's. I feel like they've been good to have for his experience and stuff, but now that he's not in, it's not really one that you're going to get caught up in. It's not like Shankland. I think Shankland had a lot of fans hanging on it in January. It was like, we need to get him, we need to get him. This doesn't seem like one of them. It just seems like it would have been nice, but if not, we'll move on to someone else.
Yeah, Ian, as Reiss mentioned, we've been linked with a few others. There was Tynecastle from Young Boys. There was Hannibal Meshbury from Manchester United as well. So there's a few different options in there. I think I liked Joan Jordan partly because his age and his experience. I think we've got a couple of young players in there with the likes of Connor Barron and Diomande that bring in just that bit of experience into that midfield of someone who can if we've lost our way in the game, almost take the game by the scruff of the neck, and just bring us back into control and into that steady form of being in control of possession, etc. So that's why I liked that link. But this absolutely has to be a priority position over the coming days, doesn't it?
100%. Yeah, basically what we want is Stephen Davis, that type of player who can, like you say, put his foot in the ball, dictate a game, and has that experience of winning games, whether it's 1-0 games that you're just trying to hold on to or getting yourself back in the game, showing that composure. We've just not got anyone that can really do that just now, especially when you look at it from the fact that Cantwell's obviously been bombed out, Hadji's going, Lamer's going. There's a lot of guys in that kind of 10 position who are going. So it makes you think, well, are we trying to play with like a 6 or that defensive mid, which we conceded 4 goals the other day. We've conceded plenty of goals in pre-season. It seems like we need someone to just sit in there and kind of help between midfield and defence. So it would make a lot of sense to bring in that kind of player. Tynecastle is the one that I was really keen on because it ticks every box basically. He's won medals, good potential, good sell-on, but I don't see him being cheap. And you see the kind of teams he was linked with 6 months ago. I'm sure we mentioned that in the podcast before, but it'd be a bit of a coup to get him kind of thing. But you've got to pray there's a backup option here, because if we are going to a season with no number 6 and with the 10 position as it is, given Lawrence's injuries over the last year or two, there's a massive problem, a massive hole in that team straight away.
Yeah, Reiss, one of the players, I think it's probably just a coincidence in terms of the timing of when he started training with us and it was announced, but James Skeen says, do you think John Fleck could be signed and do a job for us? I think he's a player that a lot of fans have thought could actually come in for a season or two and really make an impact in that sort of defensive role, kind of control that tempo. He's been playing at obviously at a high level for a few years now. He's been sort of jumping between the Premiership and the Championship in England. He's available on a free transfer. Obviously came up through our youth system. Is that a signing that actually maybe the stars are potentially going to align on that one if we can't get our top target or our top 2 targets, that it's one that just naturally fits even as a bit of a stopgap?
I hate to kill the dream, but absolutely not. Like, absolutely no way. He's just had an injury-plagued season with Blackburn. I think 2 years ago I looked at his stats at Sheffield United and couldn't find out what he does other than run about and play. Like, his passing was never stand out, defensive work never stand out, attacking numbers never stand out. I think the only thing at the time that he had when he was linked was that we were looking for a Ryan Jack replacement at the time, and he played. Ryan Jack was always injured, so people were saying, oh, we should get Fleck, but now Fleck's starting to pick up injuries, and I think 5 years ago maybe, but it's getting to, he's probably, Kenny McLean's like borderline past it, John Fleck's miles past it, absolutely not.
Well, Ian, I don't know if you've got a more positive view of that one than Reiss has just had there. Reiss also mentioned Kenny McLean. That's another rumour that seems to be persisting. It seemed to die a little bit when the links with Sheffield United came on board a couple of weeks ago. There's not been much, but again, it's resurfaced today in terms of that role and a move to Rangers. He's obviously experienced, 32 years old. I think a lot of people were questioning whether we should sign someone at that age. But I think it's, for me, as I said with the Joan Jordan one, I think it's about getting an experienced person in there. It's obviously at the right price, at the right cost, at the right wage level. We don't want to push it too far with that and then not be able to invest in other areas of the team. But what do you think of, I guess, Fleck and McLean as potentials in there?
I will be slightly more positive than Reiss. if possible. But I think Fleck makes a bit of sense. Don't get me wrong, the injuries thing is a massive worry. We're trying to get rid of that kind of profile. But when you look at who we haven't linked to, like McLean, same sort of ideas, Fleck, age, experience, decent player. Whether he's going to start every week, I'm pretty sure he wouldn't. And then you hear rumours about Stuart Armstrong being offered a contract. Again, could be absolute nonsense, but you hear of that kind of profile. There was the Davy Klassen rumour that was going about yesterday or the day before. There's certainly a gap in this squad which Clement seems to want to fill, of that kind of experienced midfielder, guy who can get his foot on the ball kind of thing. Fleck obviously has that extra positive that he's trained through the club, and we are lacking that kind of thing. So again, that helps, but it certainly wouldn't be one that would excite the fans in any way, kind of thing. If this was 5 years ago, all for it. But as Reiss said, he's been injured constantly. Played 1 league game last season, 4 the season before, kind of thing. And the rumour is that he's training with the club just now, so he might be fully 100% fit. Might be one of the best performers in training for all we know at this point, but it would go down quite badly, I think, in terms of the fan perspective of it, given the links to Jordan, Niasse. If you then wheel out John Fleck, it's quite a bad, not end to the transfer window, but it's a bad sign at this point, at least.
Yeah, I think it would very much be a stopgap signing, and I very much think we can't leave this transfer window without maybe, at least we definitely can't leave it without one defensive midfielder, but you're probably looking at a second one as well somewhere in there if we can make the finances work. So I think it might be a last resort, but it definitely seems to be an option that is there. Just a few different comments coming in on John Fleck and Kenny McLean. If I can find my mouse, NT1021 says Fleck and McLean are a backward step. Ross agrees with you, Reiss, says Fleck has struggled the past 2-3 years. It's a risk. Kenny McLean is slightly different, still an international and coming off the back of his best ever season in Norwich. Hugo Bear, Fleck is a no from me. Pete Lawrence, Kenny McLean seemed to make sense. CGM 55 wouldn't surprise me if we give Fleck a year's deal. So I think that defensive midfielder position is definitely up for grabs. It definitely needs to be a priority. I think there are 2 other positions that need to be a priority as well, and we'll come on to those very shortly. But that's a watch and see for me. But definitely, I'm even concerned if we turn up at Tynecastle having not signed one, and what that's going to look like against a Hearts team that we know is kind of gone from strength to strength the past couple of years. They enjoy the atmosphere at Tynecastle, especially when you're looking at going there on the opening day. You're not quite sure what we're going to turn up with. It's definitely a risk for me, given how we've been during pre-season so far. Reiss, reports today suggested that Connor Goldson was out watching Aris Limassol take on, funnily enough, Fashion Sakala's Al Faiha from Saudi Arabia. Sakala scored in the game. I think it finished 1 each, but reports were that actually Connor Goldson was going to play in the game. He didn't play in the game, but I think he was there watching. Is it a bit strange to you that this one is dragging out a bit, and the fact that Connor Goldson, I guess, left the Rangers camp last Wednesday for ahead of the Birmingham game to go out and sort of finalise everything? The Cypriot media are discussing the fact that he's potentially playing in a game, and yet there's not been a single confirmation, or there's not been any word said about it.
I think there was a video of Connor Goldson going through what looked to be Glasgow Airport on the Friday. So it could have been that he's come up from Birmingham on the Friday, the Wednesday rather, get his stuff ready for the Friday, and then it's taking a couple of days to go over there or whatever. Not get over there, but get sorted, and he's not ready to play. But I just find it strange that he's going to Aris Limassol altogether. A club in Cyprus with a record spend of 600,000. To be honest, and this might be optimistic, I thought we could have got a couple of million for Goldson. It's not like he's absolutely useless or he's injury prone, he's out of contract like next season or whatever. He's a good player, he's worth money. So I was surprised that he went there altogether, but the fact that he's getting over there, I think just kind of highlights where he's at in his career. He's over the hill now and it's time to let go, but the fact that he's not playing this game, it could just be that he's settling in over there, he's looking at properties and stuff like that, trying to set up his family over there before anything like that happens. But it is strange that we've not heard anything from the club about it.
Yeah, I think Paul McGorricle said actually the game was in Austria, so they seem to be on their pre-season training camp over there. I think it's with the Connor Goldson thing. I think it's as much getting his wages off the book as anything. To be honest, if Philippe Clement doesn't see him as an every week starter, then you can't have someone on upwards of 35 grand plus a week, just sitting on the bench. We cannot afford that. We need to be spending that money elsewhere, and they've maybe shopped Connor Goldson around a bit. His agents went to various different clubs, and actually Aris Limassol has been one of the clubs that's offered the best amount. From what I believe, they've recently been taken over or had significant investment, which has meant they can afford significantly more than they've been able to afford in the past. But I don't imagine we're getting a couple of million for Connor Goldson. I think if you maybe reach the 1 million plus his wages kind of thing, Rangers would have went, yeah, look, it's time for him to leave, and we're getting a bit of money back, but probably his wages off the book is the main thing for us at this stage. Ian, I spoke about two other priority positions alongside the defensive midfielder. The centre half is one of those that is of utmost priority for me. I do not see a centre half partnership of John Sutter and Ben Davies being the one that's going to help us win the league. I think Leon Balogun is potentially the best centre half we have, but he's 37 going on 38. So which is not a position to be in if you want someone to play 60 games in a season. One of the links that we've seen kind of persist, but a wee bit under the radar, is the link to Scott McKenna. Obviously, he was at Nottingham Forest up until the end of this year. He got bombed out around Christmas time alongside Joe Worrell, funnily enough, and then he spent the second half of last season on loan at Copenhagen, playing the latter stage of the Champions League. Is he a signing that you would firstly like to see at Rangers, and secondly, is he the type of player that you think we need?
It's a hard one. It sort of links in with the Fleck chat a minute ago. I think Clement was the first to say it. Like, our rebuild here is not going to be one window and everything's fine. There's going to be a lot of positions and places where it's like a stopgap, or, well, that's the best we can get just now, so let's do it kind of thing. So if Scott McKenna is a cheap option, which he would be transfer fee wise, he'd obviously be free. Wages wise, I'd imagine he gets a decent wage if he comes, but probably not the top earner. And then he's also knows the league, knows kind of teams will be playing, knows the expectation kind of thing. I don't think it's a stupid signing anyway. Just for talking sake, if we could ship out Ben Davies for $1 million, get his wage off the books and replace that with McKenna, that's a smart deal for me, to be honest. But again, it's just, I'm going to repeat myself from what I said from Fleck. It's not an exciting signing in a lot of ways. I know a lot of fans are just blinded by the fact that he's meant to be a Celtic fan. So straight away, people are against that, which is fair. That's how people feel at times. It's absolutely fine. But I think if you're looking for a stopgap, free option who you know can do a job at least, like, he's a good defender. He's good on the ball as well. He's played Premier League. He's played in Europe, as you said, the Champions League there. Gets picked for Scotland quite often. So he is a good player. Does he make us that much better over Davies? Not too sure he does, but that's what I'm saying. If you can ship out Davies, go with McKenna for a bit, it does make a bit of sense.
Yeah, a few comments on this one. NT1021 says McKenna no better than what we have. RFC72, McKenna would be a last resort. We need much better than him. Hugo Bayer just says McKenna no. CGM55 says McKenna is better than Davies. I think maybe, perhaps, surely. He sounds completely convinced that that's the case. I think I quite like the link with Scott McKenna, not because he's an exciting signing. Ian, I don't think every signing has to be an exciting one, or you can make every signing an exciting one in a window where you need 7 or 8 first team players to come in and make an impact. But I think he's a very functional signing. I think he would help us command a lot of the physicality in the Scottish League, which I'm not sure that Sutter or Davies will do. Balogun probably a wee bit more, but still probably not enough. So I like Scott McKenna from that perspective. I like the fact that he has been playing latter stages European football just last season. He's been playing English Premier League for a couple of seasons now, and he is still a Scotland internationalist. He's not old. he's still in his mid to late 20s, so it's not like he's in that aging bracket side of it. And I'm not entirely convinced he'd be overly expensive to bring in. Obviously, he would have been on Premier League wages. He probably knows that he's not going to get that level again. So it'd be interesting to see where he fits. But I think he would come in as a leader in our team, and we'll come on to it later about what we think our ambitions are in Europe and stuff like that this season. But I would much rather having a team that we know is going to do the business domestically this season, and then take it from there. And I think Scott McKenna really offers that opportunity. Reiss, what's your thoughts on Scott McKenna?
It's not. I don't know. I think there's been other names mentioned that I'd probably prefer. I've seen like Connor Cody doing the rounds, and you always get Harry Sutter jump up at some point. I would prefer either of those two over McKenna, but if it's going to be a free transfer, it's cheaper wages than what Goldson would have been on, absolutely. Then I don't know. I'm not 100% against it, but at the same time, I'd rather we explored other options.
Yeah, I mean, I don't doubt that we have a list of centre halves that we're looking at, and there's a few comments saying that if we wanted Scott McKenna, well, he's been available for free since the end of last season, so we would have done it by now. I don't doubt that Scott McKenna's looking at all his options the same way that we're looking at all ours, and it might be one of those ones that actually, if he doesn't have a team by now, he's maybe not found a team at the level that he's potentially looking at or he's searching for. We've potentially not been able to get. I mean, we were linked with Jose Cordoba how long ago now? That middle of June, and then he went to Norwich. So it might well be that we've not been able to get our targets over the line either, and Scott McKenna then becomes a really viable option, and I think it's one that would be okay for me at this stage, and it wouldn't be an exciting signing. Freddie Faulkner comes in and asks, was David Weir exciting when we bought him? I think David Weir's a one-off. I'm not sure you can quite compare anyone to David Weir and the longevity he gave us and the sort of stability he gave us as well. But maybe it is that type of player that we need, just someone that's really steady and does his job, and that's that. We focus a lot on defenders being ball-playing defenders, and actually that's what we probably got in Sutter and Davies, and it's that physicality that we're lacking, and we see all too often that we're beaten in those areas by teams that are more physical or have a striker that's willing to throw himself about. But Ian, in terms of the defence as a whole at this stage, as we head into the first game, how concerned are you about it?
Incredibly. Is that a strong enough word? It's not been good enough in pre-season. I know it's only pre-season and no one's maybe trying the hardest kind of thing, but I feel like with Goldson leaving, he is still our best defender. Whether he was on form or not is obviously a majorly different question, especially at the end of last season, but you're probably losing your best defender from that sort of crop of players, and you only really replacing him with Nsiala, who had his debut as in his first ever professional men's game of football the other day. So I don't think he's anywhere near ready to be like the starting centre-back, and we all have our issues with Davies and Sutter, as we've touched on there, so that's a problem. I'm more worried Tav is still getting game time.
I think James Tavernier is here to stay this season. I might be wrong, but I think James Tavernier is going to be starting next week against Hearts at Tynecastle, and I think at this stage I'd probably be surprised if we then see him leave.
My only thinking on that is possibly Sterling has a little knock just now, and it's a case of keeping Tav to see how Sterling recovers for this kind of thing. It's maybe just pie in the sky stuff, because I'm quite set on Tav leaving now. I think when you watch him pre-season, he still looks like he's lost an extra yard of pace compared to last year. He's still just not, he's nowhere near good enough defensively now, and he was never great defensively. So it's just a massive red flag. Anyway, he can't get up and down the pitch to help with the attack. I know he got an assist the other day, which was still class. So he's still got that in him, which I wouldn't worry about. But if we were going to a season starting to have it right back, that's not good enough. It's just not where we should be at this point in time. And obviously left back, I'm a big Ridvan fan, so that's fine. But he's never been the most reliable, especially injury-wise. And when you see the defensive performance of Hefty, again, that's a bit of a red flag, which it's going to be. He's a young player. It's not a slight on him as such. It's just a case of he's not any improvement really at this point to what we had last season. So, yeah, I see a lot of comments there touching about how centre-back is the priority and defence is the priority. We've already mentioned how a defensive midfielder is needed in there. It just seems like we need to spend a lot of money on quality to make that better. I just don't think we have that money, which is why your McKenna's are a smart option. Your Fleck is maybe a smart option as well. I just don't see us having the money in this window to make us as good as we all want to become right now, kind of thing. So, yeah, worried, just to put it mildly.
Reiss, Ben Davies is getting a lot of discussion going in the comments. He's always been a player that I think has probably had quite a tough time from fans at Rangers. I don't think he's anywhere near as bad as people make him out to be. I don't think he's necessarily of the level that we need in that position, but I don't think he's a particularly bad footballer. Would you be comfortable with him being a starting centre half as we go into the new season and give him a chance, or is it really he's had a chance already and it's sort of too far down the line now?
I'm probably in the same boat. I don't mind Ben Davies at all. See, if he was on allegedly a more reasonable wage, then I think fans wouldn't give him half the stick that he gets. I think it's because he came for the Premier League, he came for Liverpool, that folk expected a superstar to come up here, and quite frankly, he's never been that. He wasn't that at Preston, he's not that at Liverpool, he's not that here. But he's probably, I'd say he's on par with John Sutter, and he's probably better than Leon Balogun. Balogun's maybe got an extra yard of pace and more experience, but Ben Davies is probably the best footballer out of the three of them. Not necessarily the best defender, but it might be unpopular, but I'd probably rather Davies starting with another centre-back than Sutter starting with another centre-back. As in, if we're bringing in a new centre-half, I want him to replace Sutter before I want him to replace Davies. I don't think Ben Davies is half the problem that he's made out to be.
Yeah, I think Reiss makes a good point there, Ian, in terms of would you choose Davies or Sutter as a starting centre-half if someone came in? I've not been impressed by John Sutter at all. I think he's been given a lot of leeway in terms of people saying, well, his natural position is a right centre-half instead of a left centre-half. I think maybe in the early stages of the season that can be levelled, but I think as a professional footballer, as you go through a season, like a full length season, then you've got to be able to adjust and you've got to be able to learn. And his body positioning still, even yesterday against Union Berlin, his body positioning is all wrong so often that it's a very, I don't know if it's because Rangers defend in a very different way to a team like Hearts. I guess I think Hearts are more more physical in the way they defend, and he was leading their defence, and effectively his job was to win the ball and he would have someone behind him sweeping up. That wasn't really his job at Rangers last season, and it's a very different way of playing. I don't think we've seen the same player that was at Hearts, and I was actually really disappointed with John Sutter last season. I've seen we've been linked to his brother, Harry Sutter, who's available on loan this summer. I think he's a better defender if I'm honest from what I've seen. But I'm not fully convinced by John Sutter at all. What do you think? And do you think actually we need to give him that shot in that right centre half slot and see how he does?
I think there's two main thoughts that I have on this and Sutter in particular. I do like him as a player. I think he's good. I think he's solid. He's dependable enough. He will make mistakes, but if he wasn't going to make those mistakes, he would be at a much higher level than we're at, considering the skill set that he has. But my big worry, and what I seem to always come round to in these podcasts, is that our defenders should be in a back five, because they do have those different errors to them and issues with them. And John Sutter, as you said, was great at Hearts, played in a back five, was the centre key of that, who could come out with the ball, try and start attacks, and be that kind of central figure, so that when he made a mistake, he had someone covered. Usually the centre back on the other side would drop in and cover that. Ben Davies, likewise, he's played left centre back a lot because he's not the most dominant, so he puts someone dominant beside him. So see, like on paper, and I don't want Balogun to be starting games at this age, to be fair, but on paper, a centre back trio of those three has pretty much everything. They're good in the ball, there's a bit of pace there, there's a bit of command in centre back there, and there's good footballing in there. So it makes sense. Like, I know people hate back fives and stuff like that. I'm not going to keep going on about it because, like I say, every podcast I seem to start talking about a back five out of nowhere. But
yeah, you're getting some funny looks
I don't think
from me and Reiss.
it's always the same. But as I say, I don't think Sutter's massively a problem at this point, considering where the other problems are in the team. Like, for example, if we've got just blanket figure £4 million to spend on a player, I'd be more interested in bringing in a striker and a number 6, like a Shankland and a Niasse, for example. Whereas longer term, I think you do need to look at Sutter and think, are you good enough to do well in Europe for us? Are you that centre back that wins his leagues? I don't know if he's there. He might get there because he's not exactly old. I think he's 26, 27 now, Sutter. So he's still going to get a bit better, you'd think. But I think if you put sort of the opposite to what Reiss says, I would rather Sutter was the starter and the left centre back was someone new and fresh who's got maybe a bit more experience than him, a bit more of a winner, a bit more commanding. But right now, I don't see us signing a centre back given the priority positions are elsewhere on that pitch.
Yeah, Ian, I just want to bring up this comment from Craig Hart, who is a friend of the show and used to be part of the show. Says, I think we're wasting time rating what we have currently. What we have currently is worse than second best. We know that. We need 2 quality centre halves, in my opinion. Is it just, I guess we've discussed priority positions. We've already discussed defensive midfielder. We've discussed a centre half, and we'll go on to talking about a striker shortly. But is it just a case of almost firefighting and prioritising in this window and then building up as we go through the next couple of windows, rather than being able to, I guess as Craig says, buy 2 quality centre halves as well as everything else we need?
Yeah, I think that's spot on. Craig's right. He's not wrong in what he's saying there. I don't think any of us right now are thinking, oh, centre back's fine, this is great. It's more just what else needs done kind of thing. And like I think Ross commented it earlier, that we've got too many players in the team taking a big wage who we can't get rid of. Ben Davies probably top of that list with guys like Dowell and Matondo. It's wages like those 3 are not far off 80k a week that we're paying out. So we can't just then add another player on that on a decent wage, because anyone we bring in with quality is going to cost a few million, take a decent wage, because the only way you're going to get better is paying the money to get better players. It's very black and white. But if no one's sitting offering Ben Davies a contract, if no one's coming to us with offers, we're not going to sell him. And then it's going back to this thing we said at the start with guys on 30k a week plus just to be in the squad, just to come in now and again kind of thing. So I don't see anyone moving out from centre-back, and especially when you look at, like, Nsiala got offered a deal from AC Milan and chose us instead. Like, he must have been guaranteed, you're going to get first team minutes here. And to be fair, so far what I've seen, I've liked Nsiala. I'd be quite keen on him just getting a chance. Like, why not? He might be totally raw, he might have issues, but we saw how quick a guy like Bassey progressed with first team football and experience. And same idea, he will have errors, but you just hope that the strength then outweigh those errors. So if Nsiala suddenly is the starting centre back this season, don't get me wrong, I'm pretty worried about it, but I would at least see the sense and see what he can do. If he makes a million errors, then fair enough, you take him out for Davies again, but I don't think he's came here to sit on the bench, to be honest.
Yeah, Ian keeps trying to reassure us that don't worry, they're going to make errors, but that's okay. I'm not sure I'm okay with our centre halves continuing to make errors, and I know some people don't like comparisons with the other side of the city, and but I think it's fair when they are our main, potentially only competitor as we go into the new season. What Gibson 97 says, our centre backs are nowhere near Carter Vickers. We need players of that level to get closer to them. I think we see how much of a better team that Celtic are when Carter Vickers is playing versus when he's not, and I don't feel like we have that kind of player. Would you agree with that, Reiss?
I think I've always said Connor Goldson was on the same level. I think the two of them are probably on par with each other. I think Carter Vickers has had a better team and a better structure around about him to play, whereas Goldson's been probably the only guy in that back four with a brain between his ears at times in the last couple of years. But I don't know, I think the whole putting their players on a pedestal doesn't really sit well with me. I think it's just tribalness. I'll never want to put them on a pedestal, but what we have now is absolutely bang average. I seen a comment earlier, I think it might have been CGM, excuse me if I'm wrong, but somebody said Ben Davies is bang average at defending. He's good with a ball, but he's bang average at defending. So is John Sutter, so is Leon Balogun. None of our centre halves are great or good. I think they're all bang average, and we do need to improve on it. But like you say, I think this window is just going to be one of those ones where Philippe Clement must be looking around about them. They're now going, where do I start? The Cantwell bombshell just added another position into that as well. We've not even spoken about that yet. So it's one of these windows where you've got 1,000,001 things you could do. It's just about what can you get done with the resources you've got and see where we go for there.
Yeah, I thought Tom Lawrence was one name who I thought would maybe be on his way out the door this summer. He probably raised a few question marks about whether he should be on his way out the door yesterday against Berlin with his performance and his movement, and he did seem to be more in his preferred position yesterday. So potentially I want to discuss that as a way around it. But the third place that I wanted to go was the forward line. Reiss, is it concerning that we've not really had any solid links or strong links to any strikers recently?
Absolutely. I don't think there's any two ways around about that. It's absolutely concerning. I'm so glad we get Chery over the line, because I've been on record in saying McCausland and Wright wouldn't get a game for Hearts or Kelly, never mind for us. So to now move on to a striker, I think that's where we should go. I think it will rely on probably the same as the centre half thing. We'll need to ship one out first, because we've already got Igamani, you've got Danilo, you've got Dessers there. To bring in a fourth, especially with the wages Danilo and Dessers are going to be on, just doesn't make sense, and I can't see us doing it. I think it was reassuring to hear earlier in the transfer window that Dessers had interest for Saudi Arabia, Spain and other places apparently. So if we can use one of those offers or that interest and start to get a bidding war going, raise a bit of money and bring someone else in, I'd be all for it.
Yeah, CGM 55, and I don't know if anyone else has seen Cyril Desser's post-match comments from yesterday, but he definitely doesn't look like a player going anywhere based on his post-match interview yesterday. He's also, I believe, I might be wrong, because I can't remember how many goals Tom Lawrence scored, but he may well be our top goal scorer in pre-season as well, which kind of sums up Cyril Dessers with how frustrating he was in so many of those games, and we'll come on shortly to the positives and negatives from pre-season. But Ian, I'm not really sure I see any of them leaving at this stage. I don't think Dessers seems to be of the mindset that he's going to go. He seems to be starting every game up front, which suggests he's probably not, the club aren't really ready to let him go yet. That's obviously probably down to the fitness of the other two more than anything. But where do you stand on there maybe needs to be one out up front before we buy someone? I'm very much, and was at the stage well before the end of last season, that we need a new main striker no matter what.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Dessers had a good game yesterday, 2 really good goals, well taken, but we all know that's not Dessers. That's just the guy we see now and again. The real Dessers is the one that misses 3, 4, 5 chances like he did against Birmingham in midweek. So Dessers, if he's our starting striker, we're not going to win a league. Happily come out and say that. He's not good enough for that. When there was the rumours he was going, I think it was Ross again was quite keen on saying like we only would get $1 million or 2 for him kind of thing, and maybe we've just not accepted that as a club when the rumours came in. I think, was it Pauk, Panathinaikos, what they're called these days, out in Greece or wherever they are. They bought
I wouldn't confuse those two. I'm not sure you'd be the most popular person in Greece confusing those two.
I'm not going anytime soon, don't worry. But they've signed a striker recently, so I guess you roll them out the table. But I would still be trying to just get Dessers out the door, to be honest, because as we've touched on a few times, we're not going to bring in a striker when they two, as in Danilo and Dessers, are still at the club earning the money that they're on, quite rightly. I mean, we can't just keep throwing money about. We need to learn for that. But I'm sort of the same as you here. I'm not seeing Dessers moving. I read the comments yesterday. I saw that he done that one again where he thinks we're as good as Celtic and we can win the league again. This kind of nonsense has cropped back up, which I just can't deal with anymore. But I did say, I think it was a few podcasts ago, that if Danilo's the striker and Dessers is coming in at times, I think that's viable and can work. But I just, as you said, I'd much rather be selling Dessers, try to bring in someone else and just try to reinvest that money better, because he's not going to fire us to a title. There's no chance of it.
Yeah, we'll come back onto those comments shortly, because I, like you, Ian, I'm fed up of hearing we've definitely got enough to compete with Celtic when we all know we don't at this stage. Unless it's all dependent on what comes in over the next 4 or 5 weeks, and it all depends on getting through August unscathed. at the same time. And how confident am I that's going to happen? Probably not at all. But let's move on to looking back at pre-season overall and getting some thoughts. Reiss, defeats to Ajax, Man United and Birmingham, 4-4 draw against Union Berlin, all games away from home, obviously because of the stadium piece. What are your overall summations, I guess? What are your overall thoughts on what we've seen so far from this team?
If we're not hitting the panic button now, I don't know when we do. Like, we've conceded 10 goals in 4 games. Like, it's bookies that offer odds on under over 2.5 goals in a game. Never mind us to concede 2.5 every game. So if we continue defending the way we're defending, we're in for a long, hard season. I reckon there's a bit of a saving grace. I seen that although we get beat off Birmingham, Hearts get beat off Fleetwood the other day. So it might be alright next week. But this team is far from the finished article. There's probably about 4 players in this team that I wouldn't be using swearing words to describe at the minute. There's honestly, Barron and Diamandi look alright in the middle of the park. You've got Butland in goals, looks good. The rest, I'm no sold on. Not one of them. Maybe Ridvan, he's looked good. I think he absolutely has to be a starting left back after Hefty's performance yesterday.
Hefty's a bit kamikaze, isn't he? He's a bit everything going forward and quite exciting, but no defensive awareness at all about him.
Nah, that cross ball came over yesterday. Twice it happened. Twice it looked like nobody knew whose man it was, and he was nowhere to be seen. So it's just got to be one of those ones where you take it as it comes. You just hope it's pre-season. You don't read too much into it. As I say, and I think we'll all remember, you've seen us beating Real Madrid in pre-season, and I don't think that season went great. I can't remember exactly what year it was, but it wasn't a great Rangers team. And this one, you've just got to hope it's a bit of a reverse. We look terrible to start off with, and then when it comes to doing the business, we turn it on.
Yeah, I have massive concerns over it. I struggled to watch the game yesterday. I didn't really want to watch it. I ended up catching most of it on the highlights. To be fair, but I'm getting more and more pessimistic about the upcoming season as the days go on. Ian, I find it hard to disagree with what Reiss has said about the overall feeling after pre-season. I think when you look at the level of opposition that we played in terms of Ajax, in terms of Man United, in terms of Union Berlin, I think Philippe Clement obviously tried to set it up as being, we're going into a Champions League qualifier very shortly after the end of pre-season, so let's go up to a level and a speed against teams like that. I don't think that's necessarily worked in our favour, especially them all being away from home. And I think that night at Birmingham on Wednesday was probably supposed to be the confidence booster, which it was anything but that, and it raised so many more concerns than I think maybe any of us had previously, because we were probably giving it the caveats of, well, it was Ajax, it was Man United, and we played half a B team for half the game and stuff like that. We were all given those excuses, but the Birmingham one is the really concerning one for me. I felt against Union Berlin, there were some real positives going forward. I spoke about Tom Lawrence earlier, and I think his movement in the middle of the park, his ability to turn on the ball and to really, it sounds so basic, but just have that pass and then drive forward.
Yep.
With his movement was really good, and I think his second goal shows exactly probably the kind of football that we want to be playing. And under Philippe Clement, and probably the type of football Philippe Clement is trying to get us to play. We've spoken long and hard over I guess the remainder of last season and all this summer about what is Philippe Clement's style, what's he trying to get us to do. I think that second Tom Lawrence goal is exactly what he wants us to do, but we've seen it. That's maybe only the second time we've probably seen it since Philippe Clement has actually came in, and that's the real concern. There's obviously a lot being said around he can only do what he can with the players he's got, which I think is fair to an extent. But what have you made of pre-season so far?
Yeah, overall, obviously concerning. I would challenge anyone to find a Rangers pre-season where we don't win a game. So that's a nice positive start to go on. But at least yesterday, there were positives. I mean, I think in attack, as you say, we looked threatening. We looked quite sharp, especially like Cortez looked back kind of pace-wise anyway, he looked decent. Lawrence and Dessers had good games. Scott Wright was, again, okay.
We can't have Scott Wright being one of the standouts of our pre-season.
He has been
one of our best players, and we can't. That's probably more of a sign than anything of where we are. But it's not. That doesn't mean it's acceptable that that's the case.
No, it's totally not. It's totally not. But at least yesterday, you kind of saw some patterns of play. You saw good attacking moves. I mean, I'm not going to start going down the XG route because everyone hates XG and stuff, but I'd imagine the XG from yesterday's game was double what it was from Birmingham, Man United, Ajax put together. So at least there is a bit of positive play at least happening there. Obviously, you get the caveat that defence was shockingly bad, but I guess at this point we've not really seen what, at least on paper, all of us would put down as our best Rangers 11 right now. Obviously, it's going to change between who's centre backs and stuff like that, but we've not had a chance to see Czerny, Danilo, Cortez. I think they have enough about them to cause problems, especially teams in our league. So I don't see Hearts being a massive problem at the weekend. I know they're probably a third best team.
Why would you say that, Ian?
I need back. If I don't have some faith in this team, then what's the point? We need to have something. So we usually do all right at Hearts. Hearts haven't had a great pre-season, as Reiss said. They get battled off Fleetwood the other day. They get beat off Spurs the week before. So I don't think they're coming in full of confidence, you'd need to say, on paper anyway. So I think we'll be comfortable enough at the weekend, and I am waiting for this to be clipped and shared when Hearts beat us 2-0.
Yeah, I would. We might even clip it ourselves and put it out there. So, Reiss, I think one of the points that we've heard it from other managers as well. I think Steven Gerrard was the first to kind of put it out there as bluntly as he did. But pre-season games, they often are done under sort of that compromised training perspective, where players have been put through hard training sessions and in various lengths of time up to and leading up to certain games, which are bits that fans don't see, and players can often be in that sort of distressed fitness state when they go into games. There's a comment here, CGM, saying Cortez looked knackered after 4 minutes. Lawrence was blown big time. I assume they're being run hard in training. Those are the bits that we don't know as fans, and that's probably what makes pre-season games hard to judge. But how much of a concern is it that we've just not turned up in any game really so far?
To play devil's advocate, you might say that's because they're being run hard. Might just mean that they're unfit if he's blown after 10 minutes. Do you know what I mean? But I think it seems to be the body language, I think, that's annoying me the most about all it. I think Birmingham during the week, we just looked lackadaisical. There's players that look like they'd rather be anywhere else. They're just kind of going through the motions, and I suppose that's what pre-season's all about. But I remember watching pre-season games when I was younger, a Rangers teams, say 2010, 2011 for talking sake, and going, we look good here. We're going to win the league this year. I remember vividly 2010, we beat Newcastle at Ibrox. Naismith and Kenny Miller were running a riot, and I knew we were winning the league that year. When you look at this Rangers team, you go, we're going to be closer to Hearts than we're going to beat Celtic. This has been a shocking pre-season. The players, they all look like they're in a bit of a state of who's staying, who's going. I think some of them are listening to the rumours about the likes of Tavernier and that, and there obviously has been times when he's been out the team and stuff. Whether that's been brought in the dressing room, I don't know. How true it is, we don't know either, but it just seems that everybody's a bit all over the place now. And I spoke earlier about the amount of tasks the manager's got to do in terms of bringing players in. They probably are all over the place now, and it's been a honking pre-season.
Right, that's plenty of negatives. Right, well, what are the positives that come out of this pre-season? A lot of people are saying that the sort of partnership in midfield between Diomande and Barron is one of the only positives that they've seen so far. What are the ones that you think have kind of come forward over these 4 games?
Can't believe you asked me that question without any prep time at all. That was shocking. I was going to say, I actually don't know, because you look at it like, I know Reiss mentioned earlier, at least you trust Butland. Butland's safe. He's looked a little dodgy in a lot of these games. A few goals have gone in.
I was going to bring Butland up. I mean, he had a very good first 6 months with us, and after that, he's not looked anywhere near as solid or as good as he was during that first 6 months. And I think Reiss is making a face, so we'll come to you in a second, Reiss. But I think there's a few goals he's let in now across pre-season and towards the end of last season where you're like, you should be doing a lot better with that than you are. And a lot of people have given him a pass for it, but I'll get your thoughts before I go to Reiss. But I think that point about Jack Butland is entirely fair, and it is a wee bit of a concern for me.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing you need to kind of caveat it with is that his centre-backs in front of him change game to game, so you don't get to build that kind of continuity, which every goalie must want, kind of thing. So you can cut a bit of slack there, and obviously pre-season isn't too big a deal when we concede a goal, kind of thing. But you did say, like, the end of last season, he was a bit shaky here and there. So maybe it's just the transfer rumours that he's been subject to as well. There's been kind of constant chat that he might be leaving. That's obviously died down the last month or so. So hopefully once the window is shut and he just gets focused fully back on, gets two centre-backs in front of him who stay in front of him, and be fine that way. But in terms of actual pre-season positives here, beyond the Barron Diamandi link-up, I'm struggling, to be honest. Again, I know I'm supposed to be the positive side to Reiss's negative side here, but what else really has been good? I was, to be honest, I was quite excited Igamani came in, and I know he's like new to the country, new to the club, needs time to build up. The fact we've not seen a sniff of him is a bit of worry concerning the outlay there. So there's a lot more negatives, a lot more questions than positives at this point. So yeah, sorry about that. I wanted to bring some positivity, I really did, but there's not too much right now.
Reiss, just on the Jack Butland point, just a couple of comments to lead into yourself. NT1021 says Butland been poor in pre-season, good goalie, but form was not great. CGM55 says Butland was outstanding for more than 6 months. His form dipped when the England snub stuff happened. Andy GF4 says, is it the defence exposing him? Absolutely. I don't discount that as a big factor. And RFC 72 similar, with that backline in front of him, his confidence is probably in the gutter. Where are you on Jack Butland and his performances?
I think the only reason I pulled a face was I think he'd more than a good 6 months with it. I think he was brilliant up until maybe the last month of the season, really. Probably about the same as the team, about Dundee, Ross County. And then after that, you've got the Scottish Cup final one. I think he's got to catch, stuff like that. But I just think that's probably one of my pre-season positives. Butland's still here. Like if he was away, then who knows where we'd be then. We'd probably be a lot better off financially, but I don't think it'd be worth it for what you give up. He has looked a bit shaky in pre-season, to be honest. I think the one yesterday, it takes a deflection, the fourth one. I think comes off Barron or someone. And he's a bit unlucky with that. But Jack Butland's probably the only person in that team I'll give leeway, as in get your howlers out in pre-season, because we know how good you can be. The rest of them haven't proved that yet. The rest of them haven't got that portfolio of high-level performances where you're talking about international call-ups. I think he's at head and shoulders above the rest of the team, to be honest with you. But that's why I think I give him a bit of leeway. Even the Scottish Cup final, it took me about 3 weeks after it to concede that he was partially to blame for that goal. I was just like, no, Jack Butland does not get criticised, does not get questioned. It's not happening. But just get your howlers out in pre-season. No doubt, come the start of the league campaign, he'll be back to his best.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Reiss, in terms of that being a real positive from pre-season, that Jack Butland is still here. He was one of the main players, I think, Rangers fans and we were worried about leaving, because he was the only really sellable asset that we had, and if we had to bring in money, then that's a very obvious one that could probably go to the EPL and bring in decent money from that perspective. But I'm very glad he's still here. There's a slight concern going away just with the it's not just been one mistake, or it's been a few now in a row, and I just need them to have a run of solid games, and that fear will disappear, I think, for me. But yeah, I think pre-season overall, more negatives than positive, is fair to say. But we're looking ahead now less than 6 days until we take on Hearts at Tynecastle, lunchtime kick-off on Saturday. Ian, where are your hope and expectation levels for the season ahead?
I don't really know, to be honest. I've started off, I think this time last week, right, I was a lot more negative than what I thought. The fact we've managed to get Lammers out, Goldson's all but done as well, and you've brought in the right winger that we've all been crying out for years is at least a positive step. Like I said right at the start, I thought Jordan would have been another positive step. So that's kind of knocked me back a little bit. But I still think on paper, if you're putting a starting 11 in, you're looking at like Diomande, Barron, Bridvan, Cortez, Chery. There's good players in there. Good young players who will get better as the season goes on. They get used to Scotland and I was going to say Ibrox, but Glasgow for a while. I think there's enough there that's a good starting 11. My big worry is just depth here. So, I mean, touch wood, whatever. If Diomande got an injury right now, I would just give up football. For example, I'd just chuck it because there's a few positions like that. Like, again, if Ridvan got another injury, if Cortez got another injury, if Danilo doesn't come back firing, there's a lot of worry and doubt, more in fitness than ability for those kind of guys, that they can last a season. They can put progressive months on months on the field kind of thing. If they can, I think we'll be fine. I think they've got enough that they'll cause a hell of a lot of trouble to Scottish defences. I think the only place that would kind of struggle maybe is if we got Champions League, but if we get Champions League, that's a massive bonus. So there's kind of that difference to that. But my big thing is squad depth at this point, and I know we're not going to change that much in the next month or so, to be honest. I just don't see the interest in the guys that I want rid of. Davies, Matondo, Dowell, a couple more in there probably. I don't see the interest coming in them that allow us to reinvest at this point. So as soon as we start getting those few injuries, I'd worry as a state of squad right now, to be honest.
Reiss, same question to you around levels of hope and expectation. And since Ian brought it up, I'll ask you the question on Champions League chances, and if we should even care at this stage, or if we actually just need to focus. We should care from a financial perspective. I don't doubt that for a second. We're going to reach the Europa League group stage anyway. But in terms of Champions League qualification, I have the fear playing against likely Dynamo Kiev. Never mind getting into that big group stage and playing 8 games against the teams in there. So what is your breakdown in terms of how you're feeling about all of that?
Anybody that's feeling a bit down, you'd be as well just to leave now. This isn't going to get much better. I think we forget about Champions League now, to be honest with you. I think Dynamo Kiev will beat us, never mind the playoff round.
Yeah.
I think we absolutely should care about it. We absolutely should be striving to get it. But with this squad, I can't see it. I think we'll do what we always do. We'll beat Hearts at Tynecastle. We'll beat the likes of Kelly, St Mirren and stuff. We'll get beat off Celtic and we'll finish second. It'll be a bang average season. We'll go through the motions. We'll win 8 games out of 10. We'll drop daft points here and there. And if they cock up this season massively, we might scrape ourselves into a title race. But the now, can't see it. But then again, that's what the squad we've got right now. We could sign a striker tomorrow. We could sign a centre half the following week. And before you know it, we'll got a proper team. Well, we've got a spine of a team. I don't think we'll got a team with guys like Matondo on the wing. But we'll wait and see how we go. But I'm not confident in it. But I think it's not really been mentioned, but I wanted to bring it up. If that 4.2 million fee for Cifuentes is true, Niels Coppin's getting a statue at Ibrox or Hampden, one of the two.
I think that's fair. I think we all think of that about that Cifuentes fee. But there you go, everyone. Reiss has summed up the season. You don't need to watch football anymore this season. We'll be back for the next pre-season at the end of June next year. But no, I think you're right. I think we're not. Ian made a very good point about if everyone is fit and you look at our team, it's not that bad. It's the depth and it's the worry about the injuries that always seem to come with Rangers, is especially in the first couple of months. And it's if they are consistent, if they're consistently for the length of time, the injuries seem to be for the last couple of seasons, then that's a real concern for me. But I also agree with you, Reiss. I reckon if we sign a striker tomorrow, that has a good track record and knows where the back of the net is, it changes the mood for everyone and everything. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I think all it takes is one signing, and to be honest, you've seen us linked with the one that I think might switch all up is if we signed Morgan Whittaker. I think he's the one we've been linked with, and yes, it's a hell of a big fee for us, especially when we're talking about needing to sell before we can buy. But I think he could be a real difference maker for us this year. I think he's a level above kind of what we've got in the squad and in those forward positions, and he could make a real difference for us. But I do think we need to get a proven striker in sooner rather than later, and that will entirely lift the mood. But if you drop points against Hearts next week, then good luck trying to recover it at any stage, I think, going forward. And on that cheery note, I think we'll draw this podcast to a close. You may well have switched off after Reiss's warning, so I don't blame you for that one. But thank you very much to Ian and Reiss for joining us and giving their thoughts. Thank you very much to everyone in the comments. If you have enjoyed the podcast, please do drop a like on the video. Please do subscribe to TII YouTube channel or across our audio platforms if that's where you're listening, Spotify, Apple Music, etc. It really does help us, and it means you don't miss out on any of the content going forward, of which there will be plenty. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Until next time, goodbye.